Welcome to the Jon Krawczynski Show. Today we will preview this season that we've been previewing all summer, but there's always something new to say, and there's always a new perspective as the season actually nears. We're talking here on Tuesday morning. The Wolves open on later this week and have their home opener on Sunday night. Jon Krawczynski, of course, star of the show. From The Athletic, I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. This is TalkNorth.com. Best way to listen to this show or watch this show. Best way to listen to the show, subscribe to your favorite podcast app. Obviously, we're also doing the Jon Krawczynski Show and the Viking Update Show as YouTube shows. You can also see Randy Shaver's show on high school football in that format as we continue to add video at TalkNorth.com. Thanks to everyone who listens. We do appreciate it. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. Summer's packing up and chilly mornings are sneaking in. Don't face them with a cranky furnace, flickering lights, or a water heater that quits mid-shower. With $98 off any furnace, electrical, or plumbing repair, we'll fix the headaches so you can sip cider, rake leaves, or just pretend to rake leaves. Aquarius, local, trusted, and earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com.
Hey, this is Randy Shaver. Along with Kevin Gorg, we host the show Fantasy Huddle on Talk North. Each week, we're going to break down the matchups for the NFL season and try to give you the best chance to win your fantasy football games each and every week. Join us for Fantasy Huddle on Talk North.
And the Jon Krawczynski Show is presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. All right, John, let me ask you one really big picture question. Of course, we'll talk a lot about Ant, and we'll get into some news here. What other than an NBA championship would or should be deemed a success for this team this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important place to start, just given the rarefied air that these Timberwolves are in these days. And they have back-to-back conference finals. They have certainly emerged from the gutter that they were in for a very, very long time post KG trade. And so in one respect, it is a completely new sensation for Timberwolves fans, I think, and even for us who cover the Wolves, to have like real expectations for this team. Like not just like, hey, get to the playoffs, not just, hey, can they win a round, type of expectations, but is this team good enough to get back to the conference finals? Is this team good enough to get to the championship, as Rudy Gobert has talked about, as Conley, as Ants have all talked about? So when you set the bar that high, I do also think that there can be a reaction to any sort of struggles or any even really good season as a disappointment. Like, I think that probably the majority of Wolves fans would be disappointed with a second round and out playoff appearance. And I don't even know that that's the wrong reaction. There's no right or wrong. When you're a fan, you just feel whatever you feel. But I do think that we are kind of tiptoeing up toward the line of getting into a spot where it's either championship or bust in terms of the satisfaction of the fan base. And I'll just say, like, that's a dangerous place to be. If that's the only thing that you can use to measure success is if they won the championship or not, or if they get to the finals or not, man, that's just a lot, especially this season in the Western Conference with how deep it is, with how much parity that there is. There's just a lot of, I think, pressure that is going to be on this team. And I think, like, noticing it in the fan base as well, as just like, hey, we've got to break through. We've got to break through. I, for one, do not believe that they have to get to the finals or they have to win a championship for this season to be a success. But if they do not get that far, to your question, long-winded answer, but to your question, if they do not get to the finals championship kind of level of achievement as a team, I think the other way you measure success is you certainly want to see some playoff victories and at least get into the second round, but you also want to see this younger core take that next step forward. Ant, Jaden, Nas, even let's throw in Shannon and Dillingham and Jalen Clark and and the younger portion of this roster, you want to be able to look at the end of this season and say, this group and this core is still capable of doing more than they have, of maybe getting to that finals step and doing that. And so I think that you really want to see the Timberwolves develop those young players even more, see the big guys and Jaden Nas all take big steps so that when the dust settles and on this season, whenever it does, you can say, this is this team that you can still believe in to really contend going forward for the next couple of years as they approach the primes of their careers.
Yeah, I do think it's dangerous, and maybe I've just gotten soft in my old age. I think it's dangerous when you set a bar and say that's the only way you can enjoy the season. It's the only way you can be deemed a success. We have no idea how things are going to play out. And what you can't control is how good other teams are. You also can't control what moves other teams make. Somebody might make a blockbuster at the trade deadline that makes them the prohibitive favorite. You can't control injuries to your own team. There are just so many different things that can happen. So I just think, presetting the bar is usually a mistake, and it usually just leads to frustration. Let's get to something we can probably talk about with a little more definitiveness, if that's a word. But let's make it a word. Anthony Edwards, where do you think he is in his career? He's still a very young man. How much better could he get? In what areas could he get better? And, he's been on the cusp of being like a top 5 NBA player for a while now. Is there a chance of getting up there and being a top 3 or 4 player in the NBA?
Yeah, I think kind of, similarly to the Wolves as a group, the Wolves as a group have one more step to take from conference finals to finals. Ant has one more step to take from like top 5-ish, top 7-ish player to top 3 MVP candidate player. And both of those steps for the team and the individual are the hardest steps to take. It's the hardest to go and crack into real true championship contender and also real MVP contender, especially considering that you're going against Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis. Like, these guys are monsters every single year. And so to penetrate that part of it is a level that very, very few can get to. But what I will say is, from what we have seen from him in training camp, in the preseason, everything points to a guy who is understanding what needs to happen and how to go about it. Whether he is able to kind of put it all together in his year 24 season or if he's a year or two away from getting that, I think that there is reason to be optimistic that he still has more levels to reach and that he is capable of doing it. I think, I had a chat with him this summer, and we just ran the story at The Athletic this week leading into their opener. I just asked him at one point, just what do you want out of this game outside of the championship? Everyone will say, I want a championship. So it's like, what else do you want out of this game? And he said that he wants to have people say, when all is said and done, that he was unstoppable, that you just could not figure out a way to guard him. And so making that statement, Jim, was kind of telling to me, because we all know Ant is incredibly confident in himself, and he'll tell you that he's the best player in the world, and you do all these things. And it's very genuine, the belief that he has. But I thought that this statement was a bit of humility on his part, because it also acknowledges that he's not there yet, that he is not unstoppable, that, last year in the conference finals against Oklahoma City, the Thunder could do things to take him out of the game, or at least limit his effectiveness. And the Wolves were not able to do that against Shai, because he had so many other tricks in his tool belt to go to, no matter what kind of defense was thrown at him. And so I do think that he still is measuring himself against guys like Shai, like Luka, guys who have been to the finals in the Western Conference. And he understands that he hasn't been there yet, and that in the last two conference finals, he has not played his best. And so I do think that what I've seen from him is a real motivation and a recognition that he is not the best player in the world yet. He is not where he wants to be. And if he gets there, he feels like if he becomes that, then the team in general has just a better chance of making the finals, of winning the championship, of doing everything he has. So all of the mental side of the approach to this preseason, the leadership, just the way that he carries himself, it all looks just a tick more mature. It all looks like he has just a little bit more understanding of how this league works, of what he needs to do within it. And so I think that it is a very realistic possibility that he does make that final vault this year, and that, this is a year that they can break through.
If my memory serves, and it may not, about this time last year, I think we were talking about Anthony kind of adding a go-to, last second, you got to get a shot off against a tough defender move. I believe it was kind of a two-pointer turnaround bank shot. And, I don't think we saw it actually much in the regular season last year. Does he have a go-to finishing move? Is he working on one? Where is he with that process?
Yeah, he is working on it. And what we eventually saw last year, Jim, I think, was that kind of that go-to move became that step back three, the side step on the left wing, get it off. And it didn't really work for them in the regular season in clutch time a lot. I mean, he missed a lot of those shots there. It's a tough contested shot to take. And they were terrible in the clutch in the regular season. Had they even been just average, they're probably the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And so, what he did do this summer was, and especially after like Shea and Jalen Williams really just sliced and diced them in the mid range, all in that conference finals. He did put a lot of effort and focus on developing kind of a post-up game and a mid-range game to help enhance what else he does, on the floor, getting to the rim, shooting those threes, which he's a great three-point shooter. And last year, I think he was 36% from the mid-range outside the paint. That's terrible. Like, he was not good at all. And so he has said that all of that work was being done with that express purpose of, in late in games, when you need a shot, what gets to something repeatable that you can do, that you believe in, a spot that you can get to that is not a dribble on the wing and then just step back and shoot it type of shot. We've seen him work on it a little bit in the preseason. We've seen him unveil some things, but until they get into a moment in the regular season where they have to win a game on the last possession or two, that's, I think, when we will see him try to unveil this and see exactly what is available to him now that wasn't before. But I do think that the efforts have been made. Now it's a matter of seeing, okay, can you do that within a real game when there's things on the line? And that'll be kind of a nice, intriguing thing to watch early on in the season in close games.
John's going to tell us about Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. We will get to the rotation, Finch, some injury news with Mike Conley, how the point guard position is going to play out. And at the end, we will have our Twitter question sponsored by Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chop's clothing line. Right now, we do want to hear more about Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood, our presenting sponsor.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west side or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
I want to tell you about TSR Injury Law, 612 TSR Time. Recently, we had Steve Terry, one of the founders of TSR Injury Law, one of the partners, the guy whose face you see on all the billboards around town, who gets to hang out with Naz Reid, Mike, and Nori. We had him on a show to give the intelligent fan perspective. And listen, it's not just, we don't just have Steve on because he's been such a big supporter of the network and this show, but also because, he knows the Timberwolves people. He hangs out with them. He has business dealings with them. He usually has some insights that we might not be privy to. So it was great to have him on recently. But the important thing to remember is if you're ever injured, and we hope you aren't, but if you're ever injured, call 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. They'll take good care of you. It's that simple. We'd also like to thank Royal Credit Union.
It's time for change. Experience better banking and put your financial goals in motion with Royal Credit Union. It's time to get more from your checking account, upgrade your vehicle, or finally build your dream home. Royal offers the financial solutions you need and the advice you can trust to plan for what's next. Better banking is one change away. It's time to switch to Royal Credit Union. Get started at rcu.org/time. Insured by NCUA. Loan subject to credit approval. Equal housing opportunity.
All right, so let's get into some newsy stuff here. What's up with Mike Conley and the point guard position?
Something a little interesting this week, Jim, leading into the opener against Portland. Chris Finch was asked about Mike Conley and kind of where he's at health-wise going into this season. And the question was sort of in the context of last year, we know that last summer was a very tough summer for Mike Conley, that he was coming off of that ankle injury that he had in the playoffs, that he also had the wrist injury that is going to take basically, he said is going to require surgery after his career is over. But he was trying to play through it. And so for the most part, anecdotally, what we had heard and what Mike has said for most of training camp was that, the summer this year was just really rejuvenating for him because he was healthy. He was able to play golf. He was able to kind of get around and just, work on his game a little bit. So he felt much sharper coming into training camp than he had the previous season. Chris Finch said today, said on Monday that, that Mike has kind of dealt with some bumps and bruises, I think is the way that he put it. And he kind of basically said that, every time that he's looked like he was starting to establish a rhythm, something came up physically that kind of took him out for a day or two. And he didn't play in several of the preseason games. I just kind of assumed, well, he's 38 years old. You're just not going to play him that way. And there's probably some of that is involved with the Mike Conley situation. But, just that it's already coming up in training camp and in the preseason when he hasn't really been playing much on the court in games. It does kind of underscore how closely we're going to have to watch that position and how is Mike going to be able to get through the grind of an 82 game season at this age. And, what we saw from Rob Dillingham, it was underwhelming, I would say, in the preseason and didn't really exactly scream that he's ready to take that position if need be. I would say that it seems far more likely that Dante DiVincenzo would be the guy who would just step in and get kind of more of those minutes if Mike is physically compromised, in some way. I still do expect, Jim, that Mike will be in the starting lineup in Portland on Wednesday night. But we'll just have to watch it even a little bit closer, I think, early on in this season, just to see how he's moving, how he is playing, because he's already starting to see some of that, some of the physical concerns crop up, and it's the season's only going to get more demanding and longer from here. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on going into the season.
I think for much of the offseason, we did talk about the fact that Dante DiVincenzo would be a logical person to play point guard if either Conley were injured or weren't up to speed, or if Dillingham wasn't playing well. Do you think they're thinking that way?
It seems that way, Jim, but I almost think that my impression is I think they're thinking that way almost by default, rather than this is for sure the best way for us. I think that Chris Finch prefers Dante DiVincenzo off the ball, as a spot up shooter, an occasional playmaker, but not someone that is an initiator, that is a quarterback type of a player. Me personally, Jim, I think that we are just we're headed in this direction where it's Ant. Like the ball is in Ant's hands, and he just makes the decisions and does things. And Chris Finch, understandably, so far early in Ant's career, has been sort of just more spoon feeding that rather than just like giving him the entire keys to the car to drive. And trying to develop his decision making, develop his vision, develop like all of those things a little bit more before you throw all of it on his shoulders. But this is a league now where it's more of a combo guard situation. You're a scorer and a playmaker. If you're the number one guy on your team, the ball is in your hands all the time. And so I do think that eventually, if Mike just can't play or if he's struggling or whatever, they're going to eventually get to a point where the ball is in Ant's hands. Maybe the ball is in Julius Randle's hands a little bit more. And you just don't have that prototypical point guard on the floor general that is there to run the show. And I think there are concerns about that with turnovers, with decision making, all those things. But there's just too much evidence to say that, and a lack of options otherwise to say that, that's not where we're going. I mean, DiVincenzo, I think, can be fine and serviceable there. I think Rob Dillingham will get more minutes and play. But I don't think that Chris Finch is ready to give Rob Dillingham like the lead dog status, on a team that wants to go to the NBA finals. And so, this is just like, I think they're taking sort of the long and winding road to the Ant as the center of the universe type of a player. But I think we're headed on that track.
I've talked about this before too, but it's worth repeating now that the season's upon us. There are different ways to approach this as an organization and a coaching staff. One is, you want to win every game. You start off trying to play the best lineup, the best players, and you go for every victory and you try to get as high a seed as possible. And that's a traditional way of thinking. The non-traditional way of thinking is home court advantage doesn't always mean a lot in the postseason. Seeding doesn't always mean a lot in the postseason. The regular season is for developing the team that you want to have ready to roll in the playoffs. Which way do you think this coaching staff leans there?
So this will be a fun answer, because I think that right now, today, and really for most of the summer and most of training camp, Chris Finch has been in the camp of, hey, young guys got to play. Like we have to get them time. We have to let them develop. There's going to be times where they make mistakes. We've got to play through it. We've got to kind of give them the patience and the grace to learn on the job, and with the hopes that 3 months, 4 months from now, a lot of the cuts that we suffer early have scarred over, and everything is good, and they're ready and prepared as the playoffs approach. I absolutely believe that in his heart, he looks at it that way and says, yes, I understand this is the right thing to do. But it is different to talk to Chris Finch or any head coach in the preseason than it is in the regular season, when you are actually losing games, if that's what happens, when you are actually living through the growing pains of a young player trying to figure things out while the rest of the conference around you is a frickin' gauntlet. And so I think the challenging thing for the Timberwolves to try to figure out if they can live with is, it is entirely possible that there's going to be like 4 or 5 games separating 10 from 3, in the West. And so, like, how much patience do you have for it? And I do think that right now everyone is saying the right things and believing the right things. I will be interested to see if get a little rocky and choppy, if Dillingham does struggle, if, Shannon or Clark or whoever else is getting those minutes, is not really producing, if Finch can stay with that and look at the bigger picture, or if he's like, man, we can't afford to drop these games and leans even harder into the veterans that he has. I don't know what the answer is going to be there, but I do think it's going to be a very intriguing plot line to watch here.
When I started covering the Minnesota Twins in the 90s, Eddie McPhail was general manager. Tom Kelly was the manager. Andy got the players. Tom managed them. Andy never told Tom what to do with the players. Of course, he'd seek input when he was going to acquire a player to make sure Tom wanted him. But it was a just clearly delineated situation. Now, more in modern baseball, you see the managers carrying out the wishes of the general manager. How does it work with Connolly and Finch? Is there a clear line? I'm getting at the players. You do whatever you want with them, or is it more of a collaboration on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say that Finch has full autonomy with the lineups, with the rotations, with what he does. Tim Connolly and Matt Lloyd and the front office will have regular daily conversations with Chris Finch about what's going on, about who's playing well and who isn't, but what they need. There certainly will be suggestions or, hey, have you thought about this or things like that. But in terms of, if you want to put Tim Connolly on that scale, the Moneyball scale of, are you a controlling general manager that dictates the lineups, or are you a completely freewheeling that gives your coach the authority to do whatever he wants? He is way on the side, closer to freewheeling, empower Finch. This is your team to coach. I will help with the players, but you do what you see fit within games. He is much, very much on that end of the scale. So Chris Finch does have the final say on game day, who plays and who doesn't. And, there may have been even times last year where if you gave, anyone, in the front office truth serum, they may have hoped to see Rob Dillingham play a little bit more, or Shannon play a little bit more here or there. It was never a, man, why is this not happening or anything like that? But it's, you just watch how a season is playing out and what you think and make observations that way. But there's never been any edicts handed down, anything like, hey, Chris, let's go play the young guys. Hey, do this, do that. Tim Connolly is very much kind of hands off when it comes to the day-to-day operations in the season, in a game with the coaching staff. He just feels like if a coach doesn't have that authority, then you really cut his legs off, and players sense it and players know it, and you can't compromise a coach that way. And so these will be Finch's calls. He will absolutely consult with Tim and all those guys about it. But at the end of the day, this is Chris Finch's team to coach once the ball is in the air.
Lifeblood of TalkNorth.com, the Jon Krawczynski Show, the local sponsors who take such good care of us and have been great partners. Speaking of local companies, we also want to thank True Vision Institute. TrueVision.com is the place to go to set up your consultation. Go on into True Vision in Bloomington and get yourself checked out. They will take you through all of the steps to see what the best course of action is for your vision correction needs. I had LASIK more than a year ago now. It has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. It just makes my life a lot easier. I'm going to start traveling again now with the Timberwolves, and when you don't have to worry about contact lens solution, when you don't have to worry about your glasses and all those things, I'm just moving about the day as, just free and easy. It just makes life so much easier. So go to TrueVision.com. Again, fill out the form, go in for your consultation, and just hear them out. There's no pressure. There's no sales pitch, but they are great, great people who will help get you figured out with your vision correction needs. True Vision in Bloomington, TrueVision.com. And thanks also to Shepherd Goods and Laptops Clothing Line. We'll also be hitting a Twitter question sponsored by them to end the show.
SGLambchops.com is the place to go for all of your kind of casual wear needs. Lamb Chops, if you go there, they have just unbelievable t-shirts, hats, hoodies, pants, sweaters, anything that you could want for hanging out on the town, out in the North Loop in a trendy area, sitting around and just lounging at home, watching a game on TV. Lamb Chops has you covered. Use the promo code JONK20 at sglambchops.com for 20% off anything that you buy at Lamb Chops. They have awesome collaborations with the Timberwolves. They are, Jordan and Craig are at Timberwolves and Lynx games all the time. Another local community. They were at our Head Flyer live show a few weeks ago now, and just kind of participating in Wolves fandom with the rest of us. And so they're invested in us. We're invested in them. sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at the site.
So what's the rotation, and who's just outside the rotation with a chance to maybe move into the rotation at some point this year?
Yeah, right now, Jim, it does look like Terrence Shannon has really solidified a spot for himself as the eighth guy, kind of the Nickeil Alexander-Walker slot that was vacated. He's just had a great preseason in training camp. He shot the lights out from three. He has put in all of the work, and what coaches just rave about him is that he really just understands who he is and his role on this team right now. He knows he's not the star. He knows what he has to do to get minutes is to push the pace, to attack the rim, to play with physicality, and to give great effort on defense. And he's just done all of that. And so, he has really solidified himself, I think with the trust level with Chris Finch, and in just as a regular night in and night out rotation guy. I think that what you're going to see, especially early on, is like a 9 or 9.5 man rotation. And so I kind of envision that like last 1 or 1.5 spots rotating some. And so some nights it will be Rob Dillingham that gets more of it. Some nights it will be Jalen Clark that gets more of it if they just really need defense and locking in that way. You may even see Berenger a little bit here and there just to get his feet wet, by giving him a few minutes. And so, it's not an easy thing for Chris Finch to do. I do understand fans really being frustrated about, hey, why don't you just, the Warriors play 10 guys, the Pacers play 10 guys, like why can't the Timberwolves do it? And one of the reasons is that the 6, 7, 8 guys, especially 6 and 7 with Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo, they are not your average 6th and 7th men. They get like real minutes, like 25, 30 minutes a game versus, someone in that spot who you might have at 20, you might have at 18 minutes a game. And that frees up more, kind of turns in the rotation for other players to get to 10 guys. But when you give DiVincenzo and Naz Reid, that 25, 28, 29 minutes, it really just sucks up a lot of your usable time very, very quickly. And so, this is going to be a challenge for Finch as he tries to get those young guys involved and get some really good, rhythm going, things like that. But, that's his plight as a coach, and he's going to have to figure that out. But I would say plan on Shannon, definitely. And then we'll see like night in and night out how he operates with that 9.5 spot and who gets in and who doesn't.
Really interesting. Do you think Finch feels any pressure? Like when we had Steve Terry on last week, at the end of the show, saying, hey, championship expectations, even though everybody loves Finch, you just never know. I really don't think exactly in those terms, but should I? Is Finch under a lot of pressure, or is he just part of this management group that's trying to figure it out?
Well, I'll say, kind of there's yes and no in terms of, he has the complete backing of Tim Connolly. He has the complete backing of ownership. Everyone is in Chris Finch's corner. Anthony Edwards believes in him. Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle. He's got all of the stakeholders in his corner. And so from a job security standpoint, in an industry where job security is an oxymoron, he's on very, very solid ground. He's won a lot here. He's done a great job. So the seat is not hot or anything but like that. But where I do think there is pressure, certainly, is that they have a team that they believe is good enough, if everything breaks right, to get to the conference finals or the NBA finals. And whenever you are in that position, there is inherent pressure on a head coach to push the right buttons, to manage things the right way, to get them to that point. And there was no pressure on Chris Finch when he first arrived to a team that was terrible and just was going nowhere. And so you could experiment and do crazy stuff. And like, if you win, you won. If you lost, you lost. It was no big deal. But now there are real stakes on this. So the pressure that is on him is not for, you better do a good job or you're out of here. It is more of like, man, we have a really good team and I want to maximize this as much as possible. I can't let this opportunity slip through my fingers, because windows open and close in the league very, very quickly. And so I think that's the kind of pressure that Chris Finch will feel, that the organization will feel, is that they believe that they have what it takes to have a real seat at the table. And so they don't want to squander that. And so that will be, I think, where you see kind of the pressure manifest itself, kind of as the season goes along.
The top 7 players, the guys who are actually established, which one has the best chance of showing us dramatic improvement or a dramatic development in their game? Or are they all pretty static at this point in their careers?
Yeah, no, I really think that Jaden McDaniels has a chance to really take a step forward. I think we've seen a little glimpses of it in the preseason about, kind of doing a little bit more offensively, having a more aggressive mentality in terms of looking for his own shot. And then, kind of getting out on the break. And I think he's the best finisher at the rim on the Timberwolves. I just trust him the most when he is in that area. And so, I think that he has a chance this year to be viewed as a true two-way, really good player. He's already viewed as one of the better perimeter defenders in the league, but I think that I'm anticipating seeing more from him from an offensive standpoint. So he is looked at as a guy who can win games for you defensively or help you win games offensively. And we've seen that really in the last 2 playoffs. Like, once the playoffs come, he really does play incredibly well and shoot the ball well generally, offensively. But I think you're going to see more consistency from Jaden McDaniels this year. And so I think at the end of the year, if things are going really well, you're going to look back and say Jaden McDaniels made a big leap this year, and that took the Timberwolves to another level. And so I'm excited to see what he has for this season.
Do you think that means more shots when he's open and somebody kicks them? Do you think it means more of him kind of making those slinky moves to the bucket where nobody can seem to get nobody can seem to block his shot?
Yeah, I really do think that if you're going to unlock him offensively, it's got to be having him vary his game from just catch and shoot threes. Like, I think he's improved in that area, but he's not just a standstill knockdown shooter. And reducing him to stand in the corner, wait for the kick out, shoot that shot is not taking advantage of everything that he has to offer. I think that you are going to see him running as the ball handler and pick and roll a little bit more. I think you're going to see him try to get downhill, and we've seen it now. Like, he's really developed this nice little knack for getting into the paint and then rising up with his 6'11", his long ass arms, and shooting over people and knocking down those shots. There's always kind of awkward angles. It doesn't look like the smoothest, but a lot of times it really goes in. And so I think that the avenue for Jaden to become a 15, 16, 17 point scorer is in that area of creating for himself and finding those areas in the mid range or near the rim where he can just, take whoever defender's on him. And a lot of times he has the worst defender on the floor on him because opponents don't believe in him to be able to beat him and just punish him that way. And so maybe he shoots a little better from 3 percentage wise this season, but I think if he makes the big leap offensively, it's going to be just like having more opportunities to put the ball on the floor, to make plays and to look for his own shot that way.
Let's get to our Twitter question, sponsored by Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line.
Yeah, so this one comes from, let me find it here, this is kind of a good way to close the show because I think people are going to enjoy this. We have from Shea Butter Sports, can the Timberwolves realistically be contenders with questions at the point guard position? It is a great question. It is the seemingly weak spot of this team right now, but I do believe that yes, they can be contenders with that because you can look at Anthony Edwards taking on more of those duties. You can look at Julius Randle taking on more of those duties. You can look at a healthier Rudy Gobert and what he's going to do for the defense. Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid. I think, Dante DiVincenzo in year 2 is going to be better. I think so many other pieces around that spot are going to be better, that they can be contenders. And then kind of similarly to what I was hinting at a little bit earlier is that I think we are in an era in the NBA where the point guard is just not as integral to the day-to-day operations of an offense and a defense as it was in the early 2000s, in the 90s. And when you had just, tons of floor generals out there, the game has evolved. And so if you're going to have a weakness at one position on the floor, I think that maybe point guard is where you'd want it, because especially when you have Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle to do a lot of the playmaking for you. And so all of that to say, Jim, is that we had a thing at The Athletic this morning where all of us make one bold prediction for your team that you cover. And I said, I think this can be the year that the Timberwolves win the championship. And, OKC is the clearly prohibitive favorite. They need to be, but it's really hard to repeat. Denver is really, really good, but the Wolves always match up well and play well against Denver. And I just think that kind of what I've seen from them from a mentality standpoint, from a vibe standpoint, from continuity, all those things, I just think that they absolutely can do it and may even do it this season. And so to answer Shea's question, yes, I think they can be realistic contenders. And I think that when the dust settles at the end of the season, I think you could see this team celebrating, which would be an incredible thing.
That would be an incredible thing. Great place to end the show. Great Twitter question. Good answer. Thanks so much. Thanks to Jon. Thanks to all of our sponsors, everyone who listens and watches. We do appreciate it. You can also check out Jon on the Viking Update Show. And the rest of the lineup: Russo, Don Mitchell, Mark Rosen, Roy Smalley, Lavelle Neal, Randy Shaver, Kevin Gorg. We have so many good people. I can't always remember them every time when I try to list them all. We also have outdoor content. We appreciate everybody watching and listening. We will talk to you next week. And I'm sure we'll have some complaints of 1 week into the season.